Well, everybody, this has been a long time coming. Um, I would go with the I hope you brought your tea and everything, but I don't want to make this too comical. There'll probably be there's a lot of comical situations in this video you're about to see, um, but we're going to be discussing. I'm going to be discussing. It's titled "Leaving Strangeland," and this whole video originally started as describing why I chose to leave Strangeland from the stuff that I was witnessing behind the scenes and everything. And since then, especially since I went public, everything has just really blown up in the sense that it's now such a wider issue of realizing just everything that's going on and has been going on. And we're going to shed light on all that today. I don't know how long this is going to be, but rest assured, there's twists, there's turns, and actually, like most stories nowadays, I guess you could say this starts with Facebook. I got a Facebook request from a Sean Blair probably around mid last year. And I was like, this was at the time where I was just accepting everybody. I was like, yeah, whatever. I'd see his post, oh, look who I interviewed in here, or look who I interviewed there. Um, and at the time, obviously from far away, it seemed like he was just somebody like me who enjoys doing media. He approached me and said he had a company, and that he wanted me to join. At this point, I really didn't know anything about the company other than obviously the website. Um, and he was like, "Well, I want to give you an important title. So what sounds like an important title?" So at that point, I'm already in my head. I'm like, "You want me for a company, but you don't know any titles for said company." Um, and so I eventually land on assistant director. What that entails, I have no clue. But he just said, "Okay, you're assistant director," um, and really the main part of the story kicks off in, I want to say, September of last year. Right after I agreed to join, I decided to do some research, and I happened upon a site. Now the site has a lot of very damning pictures and screenshots and everything about Sean, talking about a past history, and most of it I just kept it out of the back of my mind. I was like, okay, this could be something, but this happened 5 years ago. I doubt he's still doing it now if this is all true. And so I continue on, and I go to the first meeting with Sean, which is very weird for somebody to quote unquote have a successful business. I go to a house, which I later find out is his daughter's house, which he says he's staying with to help her get her money straight or something like that. It just seems weird because that night I had to help pay for pizza at my first meeting with this guy because he couldn't afford the $10 for Pizza Hut. So that's sign number one right there. We could go with that, but we come in and he's just watching movies. Like literally, it's supposed to be a meeting, and he's just playing all these movies, and he's just randomly every now and then chiming in with, "Oh well, basically his model of how he thinks or he wanted things to be done." And he explained it to me was you get actors to sign NDAs, which basically state you make 10% off of what they do at the convention, and that Strangeland's covering their hotels, their planes, security if they need it, and helping and everything like that. It's crazy. When I read it, I was like, no, I'm not signing this, and I didn't sign it. Which is why we're here right now. Granted, with what you're going to find out, I could have broken an NDA anyway, legally, from what I've discovered he was doing. I bring on Dave Sheridan. And for those out there wondering, obviously me and Dave have done a podcast for a really long time. I've gotten to know Dave pretty well. And Dave only came onto Strangeland for me, as a favor to me. I'm the only one that was allowed to do anything with him. And I haven't booked him for anything. Because, one, I didn't really trust Strangeland once he did, once I got Dave to come on. And, I just, it's, Dave's been busy. Now, we'll get back to Dave a little bit later. Now, I apologize for the disjointed nature of this video, but there's going to be... Basically, it's like a Quentin Tarantino version of a reveal on fraud, because there's going to be a lot of referring back to this. There's going to be recurring themes to this individual in this company that go throughout. And as we wrap up everything in the end, I'm ultimately going to have to respond to all of his quote-unquote outings of what he did on Facebook. So it'll be repeated again. But this is the first time you're going to hear this name. Carey Hart. And you're like, Carey Hart? Who's Carey Hart? Well, Carey Hart is a famous motocross, motocross driver technically. But he's also known as Pink's husband. And this is actually the first time that website that I saw before I really started... Before I met Sean in person, they started connecting. Lines started connecting dots, basically. Because in this, now, I'm going to post it up here, obviously, but if you go back in Carey Hart's official Facebook verified, obviously, which means it's legit from him, about 5 years ago, there was a post. And he's talking about an individual named Sean Craig, who was pretending to be involved with his company Hart and Huntington. And at first, you're going to look at it and you're like, Sean Craig, that's not Sean Blair. Understandably so, but one quick scroll through the comments, and you'll see everybody linking Sean Blair to this event. So when we're sitting there on the couch, and he mentions that first, that Carey Hart is the actual owner of the company. He pays for everything. That basically Sean is like the acting president, but Carey Hart has more power over that. And I thought that was kind of weird. Now Sean's going to say that was never the case, as he will get to later. But as you'll see above, this was a text he sent me, I think in September or October. Pink was coming down here to do a tour, and he texted me that Carey Hart was very interested in meeting me, and Pink was too, to meet their new assistant director, Well, obviously that never happened. Never came and went. They mentioned it, I responded to it, and then no mention of it ever again. And so, like, when he first said Carey Hart, in my stomach, I was like, oh, I know where this is going. This does not seem like anything's changed since that last website. So at that point, I had to make a decision, and this was before I had to pay for half of the pizza. I was like, well, either he somehow reformed and is just using, well, not using, but he mended fences with Carey, or I'm going to be able to expose him. So I'm going to ride this out. I'm going to see what I can find out, what can happen. And boy, did that not disappoint me at all. Because things started coming hard and fast, and that's innuendo, if I've ever heard one. But with Carey, it always seemed odd to me when before I outed Sean as not being involved, because you have to think, okay, so this guy frauded children, adults, and everything in Carey's name, and Carey's going to be 5 years later, hey, I know that shit happened 5 years ago, but here's my money. Go start a company, go fund a company, we're going to open a studio and pay this, that, and the other. I'm going to give you access to my money. I trust you now. I mean, stranger things have happened, but I mean, that's kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit. And then the more money issues came in. Now, he texted me in October or November stating first he just was waiting to be paid from Carrie, and then that it was a fraud issue. Go figure, a fraud issue. But he didn't have the $17 or $25 to pay for that month's the server for his Strangeland Oddities website. So I paid that. And as of 2 days ago, in June, I finally got paid for that. After revealing everything. Well, that I'm about to reveal everything. So, for this guy to be extremely successful, why is it taking you 7 to 8 months to pay $25? I mean, come on. As a business owner, you should definitely not be that behind in paying, especially something that small. Now, speaking of money, I went down to Days of the Dead Atlanta 2019 with a photographer named Jalen Conley. So Jalen and I were down in Atlanta doing press for his outlet. And we did photos, which wound up going on his website, or his Facebook page at least. And we did interviews, one of which I've released. Hey guys, welcome back. This is CJ Creech of Strangeland Oddities. Work was done. He never got the rest of this because obviously he still owed me $25 from November, and then we're compounding that on to the $260 for the hotel. He told me that he quote unquote gets paid on the finished versions of videos. And I'm sorry, I'm business, and when I send you the invoice for the hotel that you've promised to pay, and you don't pay it, I'm not giving you that footage. To this day, he's refusing to pay the full amount, saying that work wasn't done. Well, obviously work was done. He's saying he's going to pay $130, and I'm saying he's still not going to get the footage because it's mine. I'm not going to let him, even if I doubt he's making money off of it anyway, but for his, whatever his story will be, that footage is going to stay mine because we did the work for it, and we didn't get paid for it. But in between this, especially January, which is when Days of the Dead was, it was around here that really things started taking a turn for the strange. And that's a pun on, Strangeland for Oddities. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go back one. So like I said, Quentin Tarantino style storytelling. Now, there is early on, one of the first things that struck me as odd was there's a lot of you, if you're familiar with the horror industry, there's a scream queen named Tiffany Shepis, who actually did a movie with my co-host Victor Crowley. She was listed as a client on the Strangeland Oddities. She's actually still legitimately listed on the website. That since I literally checked 2 days ago. But sometimes Sean hires. He doesn't pay anybody, but they come into his company and do free work for him. And one of them was interested in doing some sort of promotion, where he promoted a lot of the people that we quote unquote repped. So this kind of caught me off a little bit off guard. I was tagged in it, and the promoter says, is it just me, or if Strangeland Oddities was a baseball team, all of his talent would basically hit home runs out of the indie ballpark. And he says, I mean, you got talented women, like he lists some of the clients, and then he mentions Tiffany Shepis. Then you got the boys led by Robert Greenhall, CJ Creech, and Sean Blair himself. And, literally not even an hour after that was posted, Tiffany posts, I'm not signed with them. So when I see that, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And I go to Sean, and then he's like, oh, she's not exclusive to us. And I mean, I understand that there's non-exclusivity, but he's listing on that he is her appearance agent. And to be truthfully, I don't believe she was ever with us at all. Once again, it's just one of those things where it's kind of like iffy. And it's not the only client that I had this experience with, and that I got to find out a little bit more into detail about some of the stuff that's been going on behind the scenes. But it was around, now back to January. It was around Days of the Dead Atlanta that I really got noticed of my first scam that Sean was trying to pull. As obviously being listed as the assistant director of what, I have no clue. Uh, I would get messages from people wanting to do business with Sean, people having issues with anything Strangeland related, and I got a message from a dude, and he had some really serious accusations. And furthermore, not only were they accusations, they could be legitimately proven because he sent me the screenshots. Now this guy, which you'll see some of this, I'm gonna, obviously his name's gonna be censored, but he wound up approaching me with a very specific question in the beginning. He says, "Hey CJ, you work with Sean Blair?" And I confirmed that I did. And the reason why I was just wondering what I could do for him, he said Sean ripped me off for $260 for a Canon 70D, and another person $150 for a camera lens. So at this point, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this guy figured out pretty quickly that he was being frauded. He sent me all the screenshots of the communications between him and Sean, and Sean would constantly say he was sending it out and then he didn't send it out, or that he sent it out, but yet he didn't have a tracking number. The first time he said he sent it out, as a matter of fact, he said he sent it out before the guy even sent him his address. So there would be no way that he could have actually sent it out not knowing where to send it to. But Sean said he sent it out. And long story short on this, the guy that he frauded the $260 out of, I got on Sean's ass because as employees of his company, his bullshit falls on everybody else, and we're all lumped into this. And so I forced him to send the money back, and he did, to his credit. For some reason, the Grinch grew a heart for that day. But I think he just didn't want to be caught out on his bullshit. But he sent the money back, but he still said that he sent that camera out. And in verifying a couple weeks ago, because the guy got his money back, and I asked him, by instance, did you ever get that camera? And he was like, no. Funnily enough, right after the Sonoya Dead Bash, I guess earlier this month, when I got back, Sean said he was going to give me some new equipment, and the camera was a Canon 70D, which proves to me that even if he legitimately has that camera, he definitely didn't send it out, as he was getting ready to offer it to me after he'd already tried to scam somebody out of money to get it. Oh boy. Now, honestly, I haven't checked with the other person with the camera lens, but hopefully she got her money back too. And Sean eventually apparently came through also in apologizing to the guy for scamming him. Still, he scammed him, which could have fell on me, could have fell. I mean, obviously I was approached for his shit, which isn't good. And at that point, I was already pretty much done with everything because I didn't want to deal with any of this.